There's not a lot of benefit to being like having these close, super personal, super emotional friendships with guys when you're young. I would say there's far more pitfalls for you, for him, friendships that can turn sexual, just like leaning on this guy in ways that you should really be leaning on God and trusting him, but you're trying to get all your emotional needs met in this guy. It can just be very selfish. It can be very self-focused. And so I think that's why, especially when you're younger, keeping those friendships group oriented. And maybe you're like, well, I'm in the ditch where I don't talk to guys. You got to grab the book and figure out how to, start speaking to the males. And so I want you to just ask yourself these questions. Am I cautious with the information I share with him? It is good and right to have a sort of filter when you're talking to guy friends that you wouldn't necessarily have with your girlfriends. There's a different level of intimacy and what you should be okay with sharing with your girlfriends that you should have a filter on when it comes to your guy friends. Because remember, getting deeply emotional is where those guy friendships start to take a complicated turn, because now you become dependent on one another. One party gets romantically interested. Now you're saying we're just friends. Maybe things turn sexual and you're like, what happened? Where did this go wrong? This guy friendship is no longer Christ honoring. It's embarrassing sometimes to talk about the types of things we actually talk about with our guy friends. It can be ridiculous. Like we can literally be like, so what's your favorite thing about me? What do you like about me? What's your favorite feature about me? I know this is like embarrassing to say out loud, but we talk about those things. Single people get ridiculous and talk about things they don't need to be talking about because it all of a sudden makes the conversation kind of romantic or just like all compliment and like all emotional. So we just want to make sure that your friendship is marked by purity and holiness, and that you're encouraging him toward purity in your physical contact, toward honoring God, rather than always like trying to get him to touch you or, just having that kind of friendship. Totally. And Dave and I have had a lot of conversations. We've obviously been married now for 3 years. So I can tell you, like, I was probably more the one that was like, I don't want you to ever, don't look at another lady or speak to her again. We basically loop each other into pretty much everything. If an email needs to happen to a man between me, say it's something business or church or whatever, we either communicate all about that to each other or we just, blind copy the person into that email and the other one never knows. And so the other, person we're emailing doesn't know. And it's just a super easy way for us to keep each other like, hey, here's what's going on. Or say someone texts me, a guy, say it's just something super practical, like, hey, is the meeting for this church leadership thing at this time? I'll just quickly take a screenshot, send it to Dave and be like, hey, this person said this. I'm just going to text him back really quick. And Dave's like, awesome. But it's just a way for us to really guard the intimacy of our marriage. Say he sees like, what's that guy's name popping up on your phone for? It's like, he knows, oh, that's exactly what's happening. It's not a long conversation. It was just a super simple sort of thing. And that if for some reason somebody's reaching out, wanting to have hey, I'd love to get advice on something, or can we talk about this? Whether it's a guy or a girl, Dave and I always make sure to loop it into being all, the three of us. We might just say yeah, we would love to chat about this. And all of a sudden it's a text back with all of us in the conversation. Yeah. Or if it's something with work, we just communicate. For example, Dave with his job, sometimes there has to be a lot of texting. And so certain events, there has to be a lot of communication. And at one point, the 2 point people was Dave and then another woman. And so Dave was like, hey, I don't really love to do a lot of communication one-on-one with another woman. So can we just loop Bethany in, even though she's not going to be texting, just so that she's a part of this conversation? Because that's just a boundary we have. And the other lady was like, sure, no problem. We have a rule. We're not one-on-one alone in a room, a private room or a car with the opposite gender.
Hey! Why are you running? Why are you running?